What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I wanted to make a few comments on President Trump's first foreign visit in this presidency to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he met Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and some of the takeaways that I saw, what I thought was really, really important, and one real sticking point that I just haven't really been able to wrap my hands around yet. So, as you all know, the president has officially visited the kingdom. I think right now he's in Qatar, but he stopped off in Saudi Arabia first, and he's a man of his word. He say you're gonna have to make it worth my while if you want Saudi Arabia to be my first trip to the Saudis, and they made it worth his while. Last number I heard is somewhere around 600 billion with the B, $600 billion of investment, and this is a cross trade. So America's coming in. They brought Elon Musk. They brought a lot of tech CEOs and business leaders to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia rolled out the red carpet and committed to hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in U.S. defense, as well as investment that's going to go towards U.S. infrastructure and job creation. So overall, it was great to see, because usually America uh, is kind of biased, and Trump really struck a even tone when he went there. I even saw the speech, portions of the speech, where he talks about how important it was that the Middle East is being built by Middle Easterners. This isn't a colony that Westerners or others came and tried to impose on them in a way of life. But President Trump has affirmed that the Arabic Islamic culture in itself, its traditions, its merit in itself would be a driving force and lay the groundwork for the future growth and development of the region. So basically saying, guys, you guys are already on a great track. You have what you need to move forward, and we want to be partners with you. We're not here to dictate to you or tell you how to live a way of life foreign to you. And he specifically called out neocons in this, and this is a pretty big shade. Of course, everybody know, if you don't know, neocons, American institution, you can say a group of individuals, primarily hawkish, uh, deeply devoted to Israel, many of them Israel loyalists, as well as they were most prominent in George H.W. Bush's term. So that was the Afghanistan war, that was the Iraq Bush 43. So yeah, W. So HW was president number one. George W. Bush was 43, I believe. So the neocons, the Cheneys, the Wolfowitz, these were the intellectual leaders, or as well as members of the cabinet. Rumsfeld got us in a lot. I think it's probably one of the worst, depending on what side you're sitting on. If you're an American, it's probably one of the worst foreign policy tenure. But some places in the world will see that it actually did a lot of good. So it depends on which side of the fence you're sitting on. Nevertheless, Trump's over there. He says, we're going to partner with you. We're not going to dictate to you. And he even took it a step further, which is what really took me off. Is he talks about lifting the sanctions on Syria. So we know why the Saudis being receptive, right? The Middle East is pretty much coupled with oil for the most part, primarily led by countries such as oil and gas. But Saudi Arabia is kind of a one-trick pony in this regard, and they are the oil state of the world. They're historically known as the oil cornerstone. Although they don't have the largest reserve in the world, I believe Venezuela, they are considered the swing trader. They can pretty much control the price of the oil based off of what they do to their production levels. So I believe it's as much as 20-25% of global oil output or reserves, something to that degree. Basically, they're a big deal. They're a big deal when it comes to oil market, and they can swing that price of a barrel of oil up or down as they dictate. So this is one of the things they want to diversify their economy, because oil isn't going to last for so long. You can see the future now. one of the deals were autonomous vehicles being brought to Saudi Arabia. You're talking about autonomous vehicles, you're talking about electric vehicles, you're talking about AI. Saudi Arabia needs to be able to diversify their economy. And at the end of the day, they just don't have the demographics and the infrastructure to do so. And what these oil kingdoms have been doing is kind of, despite their size, and Saudi Arabia is a pretty sizable country, due to their lack of other resources and arable land, they really haven't been able to develop to such a degree. Oil is easy, water is hard. So, because of that lack of development, they're highly dependent and reliant on other nations. Like, for instance, Saudi Arabia, year over year, has one of the largest military budgets in the world per capita. And they buy American jets like it's nothing. But I always remember how feckless they were when they had to fight the Yemeni war against the Houthis, and they ended up pulling out. Yemen is considered one of the poorest countries in the world, the poorest country in the Middle East. And Saudi Arabia, with all this military upgrade, all of this money, wasn't able to quell their neighbor. So you have a situation like that where there's deep underlying issues. This gentleman, Crown Prince MBS, he's not the nicest guy, by the way. This is the guy that consolidated his power by sequestering his family in a hotel, crushing oppositions. Many believe he's behind the Khashoggi incident, where you had the journalist, the outspoken journalist, that was slaughtered in the Saudi embassy within Turkey. So it's a lot of things that he's done has been very, very questionable. But obviously, he also wants to be the crown prince that brings Saudi Arabia to the 21st century. So you can understand why he's really passionate about this and why he wants to move the country forward. You can see because he opened up his wallet, Trump is all on board with that. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the Syria situation. Going back to that, I haven't figured it out yet. So the Syrian situation, before Syria was an adversary, it was the situation, I put it that way, because you had the Shia arc with Iran, Syria, Lebanon, under President Bashar al-Assad of Syria. Now, when Bashar al-Assad was taken from power, the Saudis really wasn't that guy. Like, when I say that, like, the Saudis weren't seen as a people that was back in the current leadership of the country. Back then it was HTS. And so it's the Turks. The Turks are the controlling interest right now in Syria. So I'm very interested, because Syria is not the largest country in the Middle East. It's not the wealthiest country in the Middle East. I'm really interested in what exactly Saudi Arabia is so they're so passionate about. And it's not Arabic Brotherhood, right? We just saw the Palestinians get slaughtered for over a year, and nobody opened up their borders and try to settle Palestinians, right? And nobody forced a ceasefire on Israel, right? The Palestinians just suffered. So it's not like some Arabic Brotherhood that's behind there. So I'm really curious on why Saudi Arabia is so passionate. Obviously, this is a big deal. This is why President Trump announced it. So I'm really curious why the Saudis want Syria to have their sanctions lifted, which is what President Trump announced there in Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, as some call him. He had to put his hands around his chest as he's holding his heart. Like I said, he's not that type of guy. So it really, really struck me interestingly, because the biggest benefactor of Syria, the sanctions getting removed from Syria, outside of the Syrian people, to me, is going to be Turkey. So I think that situation of Saudi Arabia role in Syria, I don't see what they're seeing right now. It's obviously a big deal. It's a reason why President Trump announced it. I think that was his big landmark. This announcement there is the lifting of all sanctions on Syria. But it was very interesting to see Saudi Arabia really jockey for that and be so happy about that. So if you guys have any insight into this Syrian Saudi relationship, let me know, because I'm not seeing the benefit yet. It's other countries like Iraq. Iraq is going to be so much more influential, I believe, over the coming years and decades. as they deal with their tremendous oil wealth as well as their population boom, and they're becoming a major player in the Middle East, in my opinion. So the Syria situation, geographically, do they have a monopoly? No. There's other ways to get to the Eastern Mediterranean. They're not a neighbor, so you can't develop infrastructure. They're not a great military market. Like, what are they going to sell? It's not a great large population that Saudi Arabia can sell oil into. It's way more populous countries out there. So it's just really interesting to see what the Saudis are so vested in when it comes to Syria. But yeah, love to hear your insight. Comment below, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.